The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Act 1. No One's Crazy Money. It runs through every part of our lives, shaping our choices, our dreams, even our sense of who we are. And yet, for something so universal, money remains profoundly personal. The way you think about it, your beliefs, your fears, your habits, wasn't built in a classroom or from an economics textbook. It was built from experience, from the world you were born into, from the wins and losses you've seen, and the ones you've felt. That's why Morgan Housel begins The Psychology of Money with one simple idea: no one is crazy. People do wild things with money. They gamble it, hoard it, burn it, worship it. But behind every decision is a story. A story shaped by their environment, their time in history, and the lessons they've absorbed from life. Someone who grew up in poverty will never see risk the same way as someone who grew up surrounded by wealth. A person who lived through war or hyperinflation cannot think about saving the way someone from a stable economy does. And someone who watched their parents lose everything in 2008 will always feel different about once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. You and I could look at the same financial chart and reach opposite conclusions. Not because one of us is smarter, but because we lived different lives. Our experiences make up a fraction of all economic history, but they define almost all of our financial worldview. We think we're being rational, but really we're just being shaped. Housel writes about John F. Kennedy, a man who ran for president having never felt the pain of the Great Depression. His family was among the richest in America, untouched by the chaos. When asked what he remembered from that time, Kennedy admitted, "I have no first-hand knowledge of the Depression. My family's fortune was worth more than ever." He didn't learn about it until Harvard. Now imagine being a voter who lived through those years, who saw your savings vanish, your neighbors evicted, your future collapse. Could you ever believe someone like that could understand you? That gap between experience and perception is what defines the psychology of money. It's why two equally intelligent people can argue endlessly about whether to buy or sell, save or spend, fear or risk. Because money isn't math, it's emotion, it's behavior, and behavior can't be taught by formulas. It must be lived. We read about stock market crashes in books, but until you've actually watched your portfolio fall 40% while your kids sleep in the next room, you can't truly know what risk tolerance means. We talk about long-term investing, but only those who've endured short-term panic understand what long-term really costs. That's why Housel says, studying history makes you feel like you understand something. But until you've lived it, you don't understand it enough to change your behavior. We're all products of our own tiny slice of history. The lessons you learn in your 20s may not apply in your 50s. The strategies that worked for your parents might fail for you. And that's okay, because in finance, diversity of thought isn't a flaw, it's a reflection of reality. This is why empathy matters more than judgment. When someone spends, saves, or invests differently than you, remember, they're not crazy. They're playing the game of money on a different difficulty setting, with different memories, pressures, and dreams. This perspective frees you from the toxic habit of comparison. You stop measuring your success by someone else's standard, and start defining it by what truly matters to you. The key lesson of this first chapter is humility. Financial decisions are never purely logical. They're emotional reactions to personal experiences. And understanding that is the foundation for every other principle in this book. Because once you accept that people aren't crazy, just shaped by different histories, you can approach money with more compassion, curiosity, and wisdom. The first step to mastering money is realizing you'll never fully master yourself. Act 2. Luck, risk, and the illusion of control. The world loves clear answers. We want success to be the product of skill, of hard work, intelligence, and discipline. And we want failure to be the result of mistakes. But the truth, Housel reminds us, is far messier. The most important forces in finance and in life are luck and risk. Every outcome is shaped by both. Luck is being in the right place at the right time with the right background. Risk is the invisible shadow that follows every opportunity. Bill Gates became Bill Gates not just because he was brilliant or ambitious, but because he attended one of the only high schools in the world with a computer in 1968. Out of hundreds of millions of students, he had access to something that barely existed anywhere else. That's luck. But his friend, Kent Evans, just as smart, just as driven, died in a mountaineering accident before graduation. That's risk. The line between them is thinner than we want to admit. You can be careful, responsible, and intelligent, and still get crushed by circumstances beyond your control. You can also be reckless, foolish, and wildly rewarded. When we analyze success stories, we tend to highlight the traits of winners: confidence, boldness, innovation, while ignoring the role of timing, environment, and randomness. It feels good to believe that success follows effort, that the world is fair, that hard work guarantees reward. But that belief is a comforting illusion. The truth is, outcomes are not fully in our hands. Even the best decisions can backfire if the world changes in ways we didn't predict. And sometimes, bad decisions get lucky breaks that make them look genius. So how do we navigate this? By separating the process from the outcome. Good decisions don't always lead to good results, and bad results don't always mean bad decisions. What matters is whether your reasoning made sense before you knew the result. Housel uses a casino analogy. Imagine you bet everything on one number at roulette and win. That doesn't make it a smart decision. It makes you lucky. If you repeat that same move enough times, the odds will eventually destroy you. The wise investor and the wise human doesn't worship success. They study patterns, respect risk, and leave room for luck. And this brings us to one of the book's most powerful ideas: room for error. Room for error means accepting that life will always surprise you, and preparing for those surprises before they happen. It's the financial version of humility. You don't plan because you expect everything to go wrong. You plan because you know that something will. Housel gives an extraordinary example from World War II, the Battle of Stalingrad. A German tank unit was waiting behind the front lines. When they were finally called to battle, none of their tanks worked. The reason? Field mice had eaten through the electrical wiring. Nobody planned for that. Who thinks about mouse protection when designing a tank? But that's the point. The real world will always find new ways to surprise you. So you build systems with flexibility. You create margins of safety. You avoid single points of failure. Whether that's relying on one paycheck, one investment, one business, or one skill. Because in finance, survival is everything. It doesn't matter how big your gains are if you can't stay in the game long enough to enjoy them. The most successful investors aren't the smartest or the boldest. They're the ones who stay alive the longest. They understand that compounding only works if you don't blow up halfway through. As Housel puts it, the most important part of every plan is planning on your plan not going according to plan. That means saving even when you don't have a specific reason to. It means holding some cash even when everyone tells you it's inefficient. It means acknowledging that the future is unknowable and loving it anyway. It's not pessimism, it's realism. Because resilience is the true superpower in finance. When you have room for error, you can survive storms. And survival is the secret ingredient behind every fortune. That's the paradox of smart money. It's not about being aggressive, it's about being patient. It's not about predicting the future, it's about preparing for it. Luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. You can't control which side lands up, but you can control how exposed you are when it does. The world will always surprise you. The question is, will it destroy you or simply teach you? Act 3. Never enough. There's a hidden sickness in modern wealth. It doesn't show up in spreadsheets or bank statements. You can't see it in the mirror, but you feel it. That quiet voice whispering, you could have more. In the chapter Never Enough, Morgan Housel explores one of the most dangerous forces in finance, the inability to stop. The inability to feel satisfied, even when you've already won. He begins with a story about Rajat Gupta, a man who had everything. Born into poverty in India, Gupta rose through the ranks to become the CEO of McKinsey & Company, one of the most powerful consulting firms in the world. By the time he was in his 60s, he had millions in the bank, a seat on the boards of Goldman Sachs and Procter & Gamble, and the respect of the global elite. But it wasn't enough. When Gupta learned about insider information that could make him even richer, he couldn't resist. He leaked confidential data to a hedge fund. He made almost no money from it, but he lost everything: his career, his reputation, and his freedom. For what? Not for survival, not for need, for more. Housel contrasts Gupta's story with that of Warren Buffett, a man who could buy anything, but chooses to live in the same modest Omaha home he bought in 1958. Buffett's restraint isn't poverty, it's peace. He understands something that billions of people never learn. Enough is the hardest word in finance, because when you're chasing enough, the finish line moves every time you get close. You buy a car, then your neighbor buys a nicer one. You hit your savings goal, then inflation eats a piece of it. You reach a level of fame or success, and suddenly, you want more recognition, more growth, more status. Comparison destroys satisfaction. You stop measuring progress by how far you've come, and start measuring by how far ahead someone else seems to be. That's when risk turns poisonous. Because now, you're not investing for freedom, you're gambling for validation. And validation is a debt that never gets paid off. Housel reminds us, doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are, and a lot to do with how you behave. Greed isn't about wanting more. It's about forgetting why you wanted it in the first place. The people who endure financially aren't the ones chasing every opportunity. They're the ones who know when to stop chasing. They know that wealth is what you don't see, the money quietly sitting, compounding, protecting, growing. Not the flashy car, not the watch, not the lifestyle. That's why Housel says spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. The truth is, the game of more has no winners. There will always be someone younger, faster, richer, or luckier. If your happiness depends on outrunning them, you'll spend your life in a race you can't finish. Freedom, not luxury, is the ultimate form of wealth. Freedom from worry, freedom from comparison, freedom from the need to prove your worth to anyone else. So how much is enough? Enough is when your happiness stops depending on more. Enough is when your wealth serves you, not the other way around. It's when you can wake up and say, I could stop today, and my life would still be full. Because true wealth is not a number. It's the ability to control your time, your choices, and your peace of mind. And the moment you understand that, you realize that the richest people aren't the ones who have the most. They're the ones who need the least. Act 4. Confounding compounding. Albert Einstein once called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. He said, "He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." But most people, even those who can quote the line, never truly grasp its power, because compounding doesn't just multiply money, it multiplies time. Morgan Housel illustrates this through one legendary example, Warren Buffett. Today, Buffett's net worth sits above $100 billion. But here's what most people miss. He earned more than 99% of that fortune after his 50th birthday. Buffett started investing when he was 10. That means his secret isn't genius-level strategy, it's duration. He simply stayed in the game longer than anyone else. He let small, steady returns compound over 8 decades, while most people quit after 8 months. That's the paradox of compounding. Its results are invisible for a very long time, until suddenly, they look miraculous. Imagine a lily pad in a pond doubling its size every day. On day 48, the pond looks half empty. On day 49, it's almost full. And on day 50, it's completely covered. That's how wealth builds, quietly, then all at once. The problem is that human brains are wired for linear growth. We understand additions, not exponents. So when progress starts slow, we lose faith. We change strategies, switch investments, look for shortcuts. And by doing so, we interrupt the very process that was about to take off. Housel says, compounding only works if you give it time to work. That means you must survive long enough for magic to happen. This is why consistency beats brilliance, why patience beats intelligence, and why average returns sustained for decades beat extraordinary returns cut short by panic. Because compounding rewards time in the market, not timing the market. It also applies beyond finance. Reputation, relationships, knowledge, they all compound. Every act of honesty builds trust that multiplies over the years. Every book you read adds a layer of insight that connects to the next. Every healthy habit quietly rewrites your future. That's why the key isn't chasing intensity, it's pursuing endurance. Small, repeatable progress sustained through boredom and volatility. Buffett himself once said, "People don't like getting rich slowly, but that's the only way it works." Because compounding is like growing a tree. You can't dig up the roots every few months to check the progress. You water it, protect it, and give it time. And the greatest enemy of compounding isn't bad markets, it's impatience. Every time you sell out of fear, every time you switch plans, you're cutting down a tree that was just beginning to bear fruit. So the rule is simple: play long games, endure the early years when progress looks invisible, and never interrupt compounding unnecessarily. Because if you do, you'll spend your life restarting what would have made you free. Compounding is quiet, slow, and invisible, but it's the closest thing to magic the financial world will ever offer. Act 5. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. It's one thing to get rich, it's another thing entirely to stay rich. Most people think those two skills are the same, but they're opposites. Getting rich demands boldness. It rewards risk-taking, optimism, and the willingness to bet on yourself. But staying rich, that requires humility, paranoia, and restraint. You can sprint your way to wealth, but you can only walk your way to survival. Morgan Housel tells us, the trick isn't getting rich once, it's staying rich for a lifetime. Because staying rich is about consistency, not brilliance. It's about defense, survival. Think about the financial world's graveyard. It's filled with names that once looked unstoppable. Enron, Lehman Brothers, FTX, even once mighty empires like Nokia or Kodak. They weren't dumb. They just forgot the rule. What made you successful won't necessarily keep you successful. Housel says there are only 3 ways to stay wealthy. 1. Humility. Recognize that luck played a role in your success. When you accept that, you become less likely to push your luck too far. 2. Paranoia. Understand that history is a list of things that never happened before, happening for the first time. The moment you think you've seen it all, you'll be blindsided by something new. 3. A healthy respect for survival. It's not about making the highest return. It's about making sure you never go broke. Because if you lose everything even once, nothing else matters. Housel says, you don't need to make crazy returns to do well. You just need to never blow up. That's why Warren Buffett keeps billions in cash. Not because he's afraid of risk, but because he knows staying solvent is what lets him seize opportunity when everyone else is panicking. Risk management isn't sexy, but it's the silent guardian of compounding. It keeps you alive long enough for time to do its magic. Imagine 2 investors. One earns 20% returns for 5 years, but then loses it all. The other earns a modest 7% for 40 years and never blows up. Who ends richer? The second one, by far. Because in the long run, survival outperforms brilliance. To stay wealthy, you must love endurance more than excitement. You must respect uncertainty more than confidence. And you must remember that the line between bold and broke is thinner than it looks. Getting money calls for offense. Keeping it calls for defense. The goal is to balance both, to be optimistic about the future and paranoid about the short term. That's the real art of wealth. It's not a race to the top. It's a lifelong game of staying in the game. Act 6. Tails you win. If you flip a coin 100 times, you'll get about 50 heads and 50 tails. But in life and in investing, a few tails account for almost everything. Morgan Housel calls this the tails you win principle. Because the world doesn't reward you evenly, it rewards you wildly. Think about Warren Buffett again. He's made most of his fortune from fewer than a dozen of his investments. Apple alone accounts for more than 40% of his portfolio's value. Out of hundreds of bets, just a few made all the difference. That's the truth about success. Most things don't matter. A few things matter immensely. The same pattern shows up everywhere. In business, Amazon's profits come almost entirely from AWS, its cloud division, not its massive retail empire. In movies, Disney's box office history is built on a handful of mega hits, while most of their films barely break even. In science, Just a few discoveries, electricity, antibiotics, the internet, completely reshaped civilization. And in your own life, you'll find that a few decisions, who you marry, where you live, what skills you build, will define 90% of your trajectory. We like to believe progress is smooth, predictable, and fair, but it's not. It's chaotic, uneven, and lopsided. It's the story of many small losses, punctuated by rare, extraordinary wins. Those wins, the tales, carry all the power. That's why you must survive long enough to experience them, because the price of admission to greatness is enduring the dozens of failed flips before the jackpot lands. Housel says, you can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune, if the other half includes a few big wins. This is liberating, because it means you don't need to be perfect. You just need to stay in the game long enough for the tales to show up. But it's also humbling, because it reminds us not to overreact to short-term losses. The best investors, the best founders, even the best creators, they expect to fail often. They understand that failure is the soil from which asymmetric success grows. Amazon's Jeff Bezos once said, if you want to be inventive, you have to be willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time. That's the essence of tales. They look foolish at first, then legendary in hindsight. In the stock market, in careers, in relationships, you will be wrong again and again. But if you can survive the wrongs, you'll eventually stumble into something so right that it pays for everything that came before. Because in the long run, the math of life isn't balanced. It's exponential. One great decision, one smart investment, one unexpected break. That's all it takes. So flip the coin. Fail, learn, and keep flipping. Because one day, tails will land. And when it does, you win. Act 7. Freedom. The highest dividend money pays. The ultimate goal of money isn't just luxury, it's control. Control over your time, over your choices, over when to say yes or no. True wealth isn't the car in your driveway, the title on your business card, or the number in your account. It's the quiet morning when you decide to sleep in because you can. It's having lunch with your child in the middle of a Tuesday because no one owns your calendar but you. Morgan Housel calls this the highest dividend money pays, freedom. Everything else you buy loses value, but freedom compounds. We spend most of our lives trading time for money, yet the richest people in spirit are those who reverse that trade. They use money to buy back time. That's the paradox. We chase wealth for the symbols of status, but what we're really seeking is the absence of constraint. Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing every decision you make, where to go, what to wear, how to spend your energy, comes from choice, not obligation. That's not fantasy. That's what financial independence feels like. It doesn't mean you have to stop working. It means your work becomes a choice. You work because you want to, not because your bills demand it. Freedom is subtle. It rarely announces itself. It hides in the gap between what you could do and what you have to do. That gap is where happiness quietly grows. When people dream of being rich, they often picture yachts, mansions, or applause. But those who actually reach stability realize the deepest joy is the small flex of saying, I don't need to do this if I don't want to. Every dollar you save isn't just currency, it's a unit of freedom. Each bit of money unspent is a small piece of your future that still belongs to you. Because when you're trapped in obligation, even wealth feels like a cage. But when you're in control, even modest means feel abundant. Money's greatest return is not something you can see. It's peace of mind, the calm that comes from knowing you're no longer living on someone else's schedule. That's why freedom should be the first goal in your financial life. Not the house, not the car. Freedom first. Everything else follows. Act 8. Wealth is what you don't see. We live in a world obsessed with display. The watch, the car, the vacation, signs of success designed to be seen. But the paradox of money is this: wealth is invisible. It's not the car you drive. It's the car you didn't buy. It's not the house you show off. It's the quiet account balance that gives you options when life turns unpredictable. True wealth hides in restraint, in the discipline to say, I could, but I won't. When you see someone in a luxury car, you might think, wow, that person is rich. But the truth, you're not looking at their wealth. You're looking at how much of it they've already spent. The people who truly have money, the kind that buys freedom, are the ones who don't need to prove it. In Los Angeles, Morgan Housel worked as a valet. He parked Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Rolls-Royces, and yet the more he watched, the more he realized something strange. The drivers didn't impress him, the cars did. He didn't admire them. He imagined himself in their seat. And that's the trap. We buy things to impress people who aren't even thinking about us. Wealth is quiet. It's the invisible buffer that protects you from chaos. It's peace in your choices, not applause from the crowd. It's sleeping soundly at night because you know you're safe, not because someone liked your post. Rich is loud. Wealth whispers. When you see someone living modestly, don't assume they have less. They might just value something different. Freedom over image, time over toys, meaning over metrics. The millionaire next door rarely looks like one, because their fortune isn't in their fashion, it's in their freedom. So next time you see someone showing off, remember this truth. Spending money to prove you have it is the fastest way to have less. Wealth is what you don't see, the silence behind the noise, the decision not to upgrade, the comfort of knowing you can walk away from anything that doesn't serve you. That's not just financial wisdom, that's spiritual clarity. Act 9. Save money. Saving money isn't about greed. It's about power, the quiet, calm kind that buys you choices. You don't save to buy things. You save to buy time, to buy freedom, to buy peace of mind when the world decides to shake. Most people think wealth is built by earning more or investing smarter. But Morgan Housel reminds us, it's mostly built by spending less. Your savings rate matters more than your income, and infinitely more than your returns. Because markets crash, jobs vanish, luck changes sides, but your ability to save, that's yours. No one can take that discipline from you. Saving is self-respect in financial form. It says, I believe in a future version of me worth protecting. Every dollar unspent is a vote for that future. Each bit of restraint today becomes the freedom to choose tomorrow. You don't need a goal to save. You don't need to know what you'll buy. Because saving isn't just preparation, it's protection. A shield against the chaos no spreadsheet can predict. Emergencies don't send calendar invites. Opportunities don't wait for perfect timing. When you have savings, you can respond to both. And maybe the greatest hidden return of saving is emotional. The peace that comes from knowing you're not one disaster away from collapse. People who live paycheck to paycheck may look comfortable, but they sleep with the weight of uncertainty pressing on their chest. Those who save, even a little, carry a lighter kind of confidence. Saving is the bridge between anxiety and freedom, between I hope and I know. It's not glamorous, it won't trend on social media. But in the long run, it's the most powerful form of wealth creation there is. Because the truth is simple. You can't control markets, inflation, or recessions, but you can control how much you keep. And that control is everything. Save money, not for the things you want, but for the life you want to keep. Act 10. Reasonable, rational. We all want to be rational with money. Perfectly logical, spreadsheet clean. But we aren't machines. We're humans. Emotional, impulsive, beautifully flawed. Morgan Housel reminds us, you don't need to be perfectly rational. You need to be reasonable enough to keep going. Investing, saving, working, they're not math problems. They're emotional endurance tests. The rational investor says, this is optimal. The reasonable investor says, this feels right enough that I can sleep at night. It's better to stick with a good plan than abandon a perfect one, because the perfect plan you quit on is useless. The reasonable plan you love is sustainable. That's why people hold cash, even when it makes no sense. That's why they buy homes instead of renting when the math says rent. Because money isn't only about numbers, it's about peace. In the long game of finance, consistency beats genius. Be reasonable. Stay in the game. That's how you win. Act 11. Surprise. History feels like a map, but it's really a story of surprises. Things that had never happened before happen all the time. The Great Depression, the Internet, the 2008 crisis. No model predicted them, yet they defined everything that came after. We treat history like a compass pointing forward, but the world keeps changing the coordinates. The lesson isn't to ignore history, it's to read it with humility. What worked before may not work again. What broke once may never break the same way twice. The future will always surprise us, so build a strategy that survives surprises. Expect the unexpected, and you'll never be destroyed by it. Act 12. Room for error. The most important part of every plan is planning for your plan, not to go according to plan. Call it margin of safety, call it buffer, call it sleeping peacefully. You need space between what can go wrong and what will break you, because life doesn't move in straight lines. It stumbles, crashes, and recovers. A good investor survives bad luck. A great one expects it. Save a little extra. Borrow a little less. Leave room for mistakes. Because the only way to stay in the game long enough for compounding to work is to make sure you never get wiped out. Act 13. You'll change. We plan our future selves like they're carved in stone. But who you are today is not who you'll be in 10 years. Your goals shift. Your values evolve. The dream car becomes peace of mind. The mansion becomes time with family. That's why flexibility beats rigid plans. Don't chain yourself to one version of success. Design your finances for evolution, not perfection. Money goals that can adapt, survive. Act 14. Nothing's free. Everything has a price, but not all prices are labeled. The stock market's price is volatility. Entrepreneurship's price is sleepless nights. Freedom's price is patience and delayed gratification. Most people want the reward without the cost. They want the gain without the pain. But invisible costs are still real. Every reward in finance comes with an entrance fee, and the ticket is tolerance for uncertainty. If you can stomach it, you earn returns others can't. Act 15. You and me. We all see money through our own lens, shaped by our parents, our country, our generation, our scars. Someone raised in inflation fears debt. Someone raised in bubbles fears stocks. Someone who grew up poor spends to feel alive. Two people can look at the same data and see opposite truths, and both be right from their own experience. Understanding that everyone's playing a different game is the key to empathy and better decisions. Act 16. The seduction of pessimism. Optimism sounds like sales. Pessimism sounds like wisdom. That's why bad news spreads faster. It feels intelligent. But progress is the default of history. We recover, rebuild, reinvent. The world has always fallen and always risen higher. Cynicism feels safe but earns nothing. Real optimism isn't blind. It's patient. It knows pain is temporary and growth is permanent. Believe in long-term progress. It's the most realistic belief there is. Act 17. When you'll believe anything. Under stress, people stop thinking and start reacting. Money makes us emotional, and emotions make us vulnerable to stories. We believe what comforts us. We buy into whatever justifies our fears or greed. That's why bubbles form. That's why scams work. The solution isn't to be smarter, it's to be calmer. When everyone's losing their head, your ability to stay grounded becomes your greatest financial edge. Act 18. All together now. All the lessons converge here. Money success isn't a formula, it's a behavior. Save consistently. Be patient. Leave room for error. Be reasonable, not perfect. Don't compare. Respect luck. Stay humble when you win, calm when you lose. Wealth is built slowly and protected emotionally. Every principle in this book points to one truth. Doing well with money has little to do with intelligence, and everything to do with temperament. Act 19. Confessions. Morgan Housel ends with honesty. He admits he doesn't try to beat the market. He doesn't track every cent. He invests simply, saves heavily, and values freedom over bragging rights. He keeps enough cash to sleep well. He avoids debt like poison. He works because he enjoys it, not because he has to. His portfolio isn't optimized. It's humanized. It serves his life, not the other way around. That's the quiet truth behind wealth. It's not about being right. It's about being free. Act 20. The end and the beginning. In the end, the psychology of money isn't about finance. It's about life. It's about how your relationship with money mirrors your relationship with yourself, your fears, your ego, your patience, your hope. Wealth is not a number. It's the ability to wake up every day and choose how to spend your time. It's not about outperforming others. It's about outlasting uncertainty. Not about having more, but needing less. Because in the quiet balance between saving and living, between ambition and peace, you discover what money was always meant to buy: freedom, calm, time, and the chance to live on your own terms. That's the real psychology of money.